Are you looking for an easier way to track, approve, and review business expenses for your team? Thanks to SmartSuite's newest features in their dashboards, this process can be consolidated in one place, making it easier both for your chief financial officer as well as your teammates that are submitting business expenses. So if business expense tracking is slowing you down, then you've come to the right place. Let's get to it. Hey, how's it going? This is Eric with Solve Cycle Solutions. If you're new here, I help save people time by automating the work that they hate so that they can focus on what they love instead. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the new and improved SmartSuite dashboard and showing you a practical use case on how you can use some of these really incredible new features. So if you're curious and want to build along, feel free to click the affiliate link in the description, as that gives us a little love to the channel and helps us keep the lights on here. But let's just go ahead and hop into my screen here, and you'll see that I have set up a very basic business expense tracking system. I had all these records generated through ChatGPT, so this just has some very basic data of what kind of expense it was, the place where the transaction was made, the purchase date, the amount of the purchase, and then some additional details here. I've also gone ahead and linked this to a different database that has the employees. It's basically just allowing us to collect and see who is working with what, and there are some other cool features that we can use now that we have this data linked. Now, you can see that I also have a status for these records. One of them is just approved, and the other one is over the allotted amount. Most businesses have some sort of threshold for where they need to review certain expenses, and sometimes it is under, say, like in this case, I've set it up for anything under $100 needs to be approved. So you can see just at a quick glance, looking at this kind of like an Excel spreadsheet can be very overwhelming and difficult to just kind of dial into what you're looking for. So this is where using something like a dashboard can come into play. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a little bit, you may notice that I've never actually been talking about the SmartSuite dashboards, and this is actually my first video talking how to use them. The main reason I say that is because the original dashboards inside of SmartSuite, honestly, they were lacking a lot compared to other tools like Airtable or even using a interface system like Softer. I didn't really see a value for it for myself, but as these new features have been rolling out for the past month, I have started to understand and see more value based on some of these additional features. So I'm going to try and break this down into some basic functions that were originally available that could be helpful to you, show some of the new advanced features, and then showcase the use case that I've built for this particular example. So I've gone ahead and set up these dashboards with some widgets to showcase how we can use them. I'll recreate some of them quickly, but the main thing you'll see is if you are starting a dashboard, we have some basic features that we can add here. And to get started, you will have to toggle the edit button and hit the add widget. You'll see that there's a lot of different features here for specific categories. So you have page displays, which are basically kind of like web design elements where you can put static information or data that's not going to be changing based on whatever values are in your database. You can also have record display, even going down to things like setting up conferencing links, as well as some social media posts. Some of these still are in works, or you'll see things where if you hover over them, they might say things like coming soon, like this bubble chart here on the right-hand side, or you can also search for certain things you're looking for. So this, I encourage you to search through this and play through each of the widgets yourself. And if you have specific questions about a certain use case of one of these, feel free to put that in the comment of this video, and I'll see what I can do to clarify that for you. So originally, this basic setup here is what the dashboards usually looked like inside of SmartSuite. You could embed certain views of the data that you're looking at. So you could set up grid views or calendar views and only a few other views. They are still working on setting up things like Kanban and Gantt, but it's taking them a little more time. But basically you could set up certain things where you could have what's called a progress metric, where you could set a certain threshold and be able to monitor or collect all the data relevant to that particular threshold. So in this case, I'm setting up a monthly budget for a small business that's saying we have this amount of money to spend per month. In this case, I'm using this as the month of October. And so you'll see that for this whole month, this business is under budget at $700 out of their $1,000 monthly budget. You can also set up certain charts here, like this donut chart that can break down the categories so you can see how much you're spending per month, and you can adjust these features a little bit further. So if I were to click into this, you can see I can change the title, description, and this is where we can change some of the sources of the data if I wanted to, and even go in and change some of the graph types. So it's really easy to use and to map certain values. We could, in theory, add additional values as well if we're looking to compare multiple things. But in this case, I only have one value, and that's the dollar amount that this business is spending. So I'm just going to leave that here. But then the other big thing is being able to categorize these amounts by certain groups of data. So you can see that this is all the field data that I have inside of SmartSuite for this expense. I could set this up to show how many items are approved and how many things are not. But we will talk about that a little bit more later. One of the really cool features of these types of charts is that it allows you to group by certain categories or certain field types. So here I can use the expense category to break down how much money I have spent over the course of this month in different business category expenses. So you can see here that of my entire budget, I've spent $420 on travel and lodging, which is 56% roughly of my entire monthly budget for this company. We can also set up chart totals to sum the amount. So we can see that out of this $745, 56% of this does equal roughly to that 420 number. This data can also be updated almost on the fly, where if I were to pop over to this data set and if I realize, oh, this was not the correct amount or the correct category, I could change travel and lodging to, say, gifts for this hotel stay. Probably a little bit dicey for IRS, but I'm not going to worry about that here. But you can see when I come back, that data has updated. So now travel and lodging is down to 40%, but gifts is up to 21%. So this is just a quick overview of how some of these basic functions worked. But as you can see, that was originally very limited and not able to do a lot more in terms of how we can organize and look at this data. So that's why some of these updates have been so powerful, because if I were to take a look at some of the widgets that we have here, the biggest thing that we have is this page display. So this allows us to set up some static elements on our page here that we can then share with other people publicly if we decide to. So in this case, I've set up an example of a business receipt portal. So you can see here that this is just saying, if you have a business expense, you can hit this receipt. I can press that button and it's going to open up to the SmartSuite form where we can submit all of this information. Additionally, you could embed that info as well into this page so that you're not having to take people out of this dashboard. They could submit all that information here and it works the same way. Another really useful feature is that you can set up different sections. So in this case, I was able to set up an FAQ section for this submission process. So if there are frequently asked questions about how a submission works or how should I categorize things, we can put that here so that it's easier for everybody to just see all that information instead of having to go back and forth or have to switch between different portals. It's all in one location. What are some of these other features that could help with optimizing your business expenses here? So one of the new features that we have is called Pivot Table, which works as the ability to connect two different points of data and see where things match. So if I were to edit this, you can see that I have on one section on the rows, I'm able to link to the actual employees that I have in that linked data. So I can see Susan, Mark, Joe, Jessica, and Eric here. But then I can also categorize things in the column section based on the expenses. So this allows me to see who is spending what on each category, and I can drill into this a little bit further. So here, if I wanted to, in this dashboard, if I see that there's a couple of different expenses here and I want to look into this, this could be more if there's multiple pieces of data coming in. I could click on the total sum here and it would break down each level of the record. So I could click in and see, okay, this is how much we've spent based on these different individual records. Click into the business expense here and review this as well. So again, this is something else that is really interesting to see. You can click into, it's actually interesting that that didn't refresh because I'm realizing that's just showed 300 instead of the 420. So one thing that is in the works with SmartSuite right now is that the dashboards aren't able to immediately always update. They are working on this to hopefully have this ready soon, but that's been a process for getting the specific requirements to update information as quickly as possible. So let me click in here on the sum. And yes, this is what I meant, was seeing that you can see different breakdowns of the categories based on who's spending what. Or you could also click in and see why did they spend $120 on gifts. See, oh, this was a hotel stay. This shouldn't be a gift. This should actually be in travel expenses. So if I were to click that, travel and lodging, I could save that information from here instead of having to potentially miss that this was not categorized or something looks suspicious. And then I could go in and make those modifications as well. And again, you can see that even though I marked this as travel and lodging, I need to go back and refresh it. But again, hopefully by the time this video comes out, there may be something updated with that to make this more of a seamless update. But the final thing that I want to show you that really makes this all worthwhile is the setup for what's called the record picker. So this is an additional widget that you can use that allows you to select specific records from a database or a table inside of SmartSuite. And from there, you can pull up more information based on what you're hoping to just get the exact data you need out of this. So if I were to set this up properly, I could show you that I can open this record picker, change the title to employee, and from there, you are able to select the source. So in this case, I've set up the employees, so I'm picking the specific contact, and from there, what I can do is set up a record picker here where I could see what purchases they've made, or I could dial it in a little further with some dynamic linked data to tie the employee record picker to an additional record picker that allows you to show the exact business expenses here so we can see what's open and what isn't. And then from there, we have a field called, or a widget called the record details. And this allows us to pull up and edit the specific fields that we need to see that are relevant to this purchase. So here I have the expense category, the amount, the purchase, the vendor. I should have probably added something like a description so someone can explain what these purchases were for and why this was justified. But you can see that with just a few clicks now, I can go in and look at exactly what I want, and the information is able to update very quickly, and I can see what they have, what they've spent on, and go from there. Now, the other thing you may see on this right-hand side is that I have a chart that is also linked to this record picker data for the employees specifically. This allows me to change and see the specific information on a graph so I can see if someone has exceeded their monthly budget or their monthly allotment, or if we have a specific approval process, this may help me see some missing data or something that is a bit off. So you can see here for Eric, he's had a total of $315 spent this month, but everything seems to be under the allotted budget for each category. But Jessica here has spent over $300, which exceeds that amount. Tying back to the initial question, how can we streamline some of these processes for business expense approvals? Is this something that is going to be applicable to you? And take a look at what the showcase I've set up as, and I think you'll find the answer is yes, but I know that everybody's situation can be unique. So if you have specific ideas about how, or thoughts on how your business expense tracking would work for your team, I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. So feel free to take a look there. Also, I want to just go ahead and say that if you find this useful, but aren't sure how to implement this inside of SmartSuite or a similar no-code tool, I'd love to have a 30-minute conversation with you for free. So feel free to book that call in the description of this video, or scan the QR code floating around my head somewhere and see how much time we can save you in those 30 minutes. But now that that little ad break is over, let's get back to showing you how this specific use case works for me. Looking into this data, the main goal that I'm wanting to showcase here is how we can quickly filter down expenses that need to be approved. So if certain budgets, anything under a certain amount of money, is automatically approved, what happens when something gets sent that's over that threshold? So in this case, what I have done is, looking back at the data here, you can see that there are certain things that I have set up. The status is already approved, but I have a few statuses that are marked over the allotted amount. Now, again, if you were just using this on a regular grid view, you could set up a filter so that it only shows the status of anything that is over a specific amount or meets this status. You can click in here, but that's just a lot of extra flipping around and can be a little confusing sometimes. So here's what I did to solve this problem and implementing this with the dashboards. So I have set up a basic automation so that whenever a record is meeting a specific amount, so if the amount inside of the business expense is under $100, then this automation is automatically going to mark that record as approved, and that can be moved on to whatever reimbursement needs to be done there. But if the chief financial officer or the financial person needs to go in and review that data, it will still be set up in the status as over allotted amount. So going back to the dashboard here, I can click in here and you can see, again, Eric has 4 different expenses. I can click in and see hotel stay. That information shows 120 here. But this shows that was already approved. This other one, the sales training workshop, was already approved, and the software subscription was already approved. So thanks to one last widget inside of the dashboards, we can filter out all of this information that is irrelevant to us for approval. So if I were to toggle this on, and under the widget section, there is a widget called filter. And this is set up so that you can automatically apply any certain criteria across this page or this particular tab in the dashboard, so that you can close out all the things that are irrelevant to you. So in this case, I have had this already connected to both the, you can connect these to lots of different widgets in this tab. Here, I've just set it up to already connect to the employee monthly expenses, which is that graph that I showed. And then the expenses is the second record selector here. So this particular expense widget here can be applied to this status as well as this chart. So if I can then just have this tab set up so that everything is just set out to only pull up things that are approved or that require approval. So here I can then click into this information. So you can see by just clicking each person here, I can select Eric has a purchase that needs to be approved. Jessica also has a purchase that needs to be approved, but Joe, Mark, and Susan don't have anything. So this allows me to more quickly just look at it. I can open up the record here. So if something is suspicious, I could go into the comments and say, why was this so expensive? Or something like that. Or what is this for? What was this hotel for? So this allows me to get more of that exact information that I want without having to, again, go hunt down in several different places what information I need to find. And instead, it's all consolidated in one place so I can quickly look at it, quickly make a comment, and then move on. Once I get that confirmation of what this was for, and I can say, that's fantastic, we can mark this as approved, and that can run through our expenses reimbursement process. So that explains in a nutshell some of the key features of the SmartSuite dashboard and how this can be applied to certain aspects of your business. I hope that you got a ton of value seeing how this business tracking approval process can be streamlined here. But just remember that this is meant to be more showcasing some of the potential with SmartSuite dashboards. I am really excited to see how this dashboard continues to evolve over the next couple of months. I think that SmartSuite's going to be rolling out some additional new features that are going to be huge in making this much more accessible and making it even easier to navigate and review data all from one location instead of having to filter through so many different parts of data to get exactly what you need. Thank you again for watching. If you found this useful, please consider subscribing to the channel and let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. But in the meantime, thanks so much. This is where I stop.